A very warm welcome to Vienna. A very warm welcome also to the House of the European Union. As you can see, I'm not Claudia. So first and foremost, I have to apologize for her. She's unfortunately not feeling well. And so I get the honor and the pleasure to open today's conference, Rise Up, with the Horizon Europe project. So it is my pleasure to welcome, in particular, the members of the Projekt consortium. That's Minds and Sparks, who we'll be hearing from in a minute, the University of Vienna, the University of Tartu, which happens to be not exactly my alma mater, but I did spend a half-year Erasmus program there. So what I remember of Estonian is Eesti riigikeel on eesti keel. That's Article 1 of the Estonian Constitution. So there you go. They've got in Tartu, in the National Museum, I remember that they've got a map with the Estonian speakers around the world. So I imagine that's something to do with the point of the project today. So it's my pleasure once again to kick off this Rise Up project as a major Horizon Europe project on revitalizing endangered languages, with the Austrian minority language, in particular Burgenland Croatian, involved, of course. Since the project researchers will cooperate closely with civil society, language communities, and anyone interested in the topic, we've gladly agreed to host the public presentation today to spread the word. So once again, a very warm welcome. Funded under Horizon Europe Cluster 2, Culture, Creativity, and Inclusive Society. Destination 2, I'll just do what I'm told, read the entire thing, but Destination 2 strand innovative research on the European cultural heritage and the cultural and creative industries. So now you know. Projects in this strand are expected to foster sustainable innovation and a European sense of belonging by making full use of the potential of cultural heritage, the arts and cultural and creative industries. I'm sure you'll be hearing lots of that today. So Rise Up is planning to deliver on these goals in the field of endangered languages in particular, and we look forward to hearing more about its plans for the next 3 years in this kickoff meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a very warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So after this great introduction, I will not add too much. So in the name of Minds and Sparks, as the coordinator of this project, I wish to thank everybody for joining our project kickoff, and of course the representatives and the team of the House of the European Union for hosting this great event. So also greetings to everybody and to our viewers, if we have any, via the YouTube stream. So as said, I won't waste too much time. This project is named Rise Up. The main focus is the revitalization of the languages in the European Union and focused on the safeguard of the cultural diversity. So our colleague Jacqueline will present you the agenda for today, where we have basically 2 main events and a discussion panel. So Jacqueline, thank you very much, and I hope that you will enjoy and have a great discussion today. Thank you very much.
I think I'm going without this. All right, a warm welcome to you to complete the triad. I'm Jacqueline. I'm here to guide you through this morning. We'll kick off by having our policy officers from the EC here to give us an input on the project through WebEx. After that, we'll have the presentation of the Rise Up project. We have all the representatives from the work packages here with us today from across Europe, including the UK. And after a short coffee break, we'll then have a podium discussion with all of them, including also our gamification people who are in charge of the cool stuff that we can't do, as well as a representative from the Burgenland Croatian community, which we are very happy to include and have here. And then we'll do some closing remarks and hopefully have an off-the-cuff informal discussion to continue all the way throughout the afternoon, if you like. And with this, I'm already handing over to the person in charge for connecting our digital input. She's muted. She's muted.
Can you hear us? As the moderation, please, can you talk to her?
Okay. Anna, can you hear us?
Yes, hello. Hello from Brussels. I can hear you, but I cannot see you. And now I see you, but I cannot hear.
She could hear me. We can see and hear you.
Now I do.
Yeah, so anytime you want to go.
Good.
All right.
So hello everybody. So my appearance is a bit improvised because what was planned for today was that my colleague Claudia Kropf, who is the language officer at the European Commission representation in Austria, would deliver a presentation, but I understand that Claudia is sick and therefore she's asking me to step in. She had prepared some slides. I don't know if you have them to pass them or if I just talk on top of my mind. It's as you think. Or I could also share slides. Okay, so please, first of all, I will introduce myself. So I'm Ana Solemena. I work in the Directorate General for Education, Culture, Youth and Sports, and I am working in the unit on schools and multilingualism. And surprise, surprise, I am working on the multilingualism bit, and that is why Claudia has kindly asked me to be here with you today. So what I would do is to give you a little overview of our policy on multilingualism and try to focus a little bit on the parts that refer to, in particular, to minority languages, so as to set a bit the scene for the endangered languages, which are still a particular category of those. Let me see if I can share maybe my screen with you and show you the slides that Claudia had prepared. Check. Is that working? Yeah. Can you see them? Okay, so I'll go ahead. So multilingualism is a fundamental principle for the European Union. Not only do we demonstrate that by translating in the official languages every piece of legislation that we do, but also it is ingrained in our main legislation. So in the Treaty of the European Union, Article 3, we already see a reference to the respect to the rich and cultural linguistic diversity and to ensure that her cultural heritage is safeguarded and enhanced. And the project that we are here to kick off today is squarely in preserving Europe's cultural heritage precisely through defending also the most endangered languages. Also, the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union refers to aspects dealing with linguistic diversity and its safeguard. Okay. And then we have the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union. There again, we have Article 20, which refers to non-discrimination on any grounds, including language or membership to a national minority. And Article 22, that also refers to cultural, religious, and linguistic diversity that should be respected. So that is just like the legal framework for respect of minorities and languages. But what is our latest policy that I am working on multilingualism? Well, the latest piece of policy is the Council recommendation of 2019 on a comprehensive approach to the teaching and learning of languages. This piece of legislation, so it was unanimously adopted by the Council, but it's a recommendation. So of course, member states have to strive to apply what it says, but at their own rhythm and how they more appropriate. But since that, again, the vast linguistic diversity of Europe is recognized, it explicitly refers to regional minority languages in some parts, and supporting and training. Actually, the focus of the recommendation is in education, which is also the policy for us in DGAC. The big objective of the recommendation, let's say, is that every pupil or child, youth, should leave secondary school speaking the language of schooling +2. That is an objective that was already first formulated in 2002, so it was called the Barcelona objective because of the council that took place there. But it was reformulated a little bit in 2019 from mother tongue +2 to language of schooling +2. And of course, those two, they can be any languages. It can be other European languages. It can be minority or regional languages. It can be the mother tongue of the whatever country the student is coming from. And of course, this multilingualism has a key role in fostering dialogue and understanding among ourselves, wider opportunities for training and employment throughout Europe, and ensure the competitive of the EU economy. These are overall objectives, why we would like all our population to embrace this objective and be multilingual. Now, politically, I'm trying to focus now on the topic that we are here for, endangered languages. I think that it's important to refer to the work of the EU Parliament, and in particular to a resolution of 2013, which called on the EU and member states to be more attentive to the extreme threat that many European endangered languages are experiencing, and commit further to the protection and promotion of the linguistic diversity. So this report that we call the Alpha C report encourages member states to produce action plans to promote endangered languages, and calls on member states that have not done so yet to ratify and implement the Charter for Regional or Minority Languages of the Council of Europe, which acts as benchmark for the protection of endangered languages. There are still 5 member states of the EU that have not ratified the Charter. So, call from the Parliament to work on endangered languages, the first important political element. Then I would like to refer to also the request by the citizens themselves. And here I would like to refer to 2 elements. The first one is the Conference on the Future of Europe. So this was a huge consultation exercise that ended in May of this year. Not of this year, of 2022, excuse me, I'm still in the past. And it recommended actions that should take place in many areas, looking at the future of the European Union. And one of the areas that it mentioned was precisely multilingualism. And in there, well, it's several things, you know, so like promoting which is also something that is squarely with our policy and in the recommendation of 2019 that I mentioned. But it also makes explicit reference to minority and regional languages, saying that they require additional protection. It refers to the Council of Europe Convention on Minority Languages, and even recommends that the EU should set up or consider to set up an institution promoting language diversity in the European level, and in particularly also encourages citizens to learn the language of their neighbors in cross-border areas. Okay, the main here that I wanted to underline is that this need for minority language protection was again brought forward by citizens in this huge consultation exercise that finished less than a year ago. Another very important request by the citizens that already happened earlier in 2020 was a huge European citizens initiative. There are not a lot of that have prospered, so this is something that a lot of citizens put forward to the Union, and here there were 1 million signatures, actually more, I think 1,000,004, to defend a proposal which was called the Minority Safe Pack. And in this proposal, the citizens bring forward some of different ways in which they think that minority languages could be better defended in the Union. For instance, it suggests ways on protecting and promoting cultural language. It requests to make funding programs more accessible for the small regional and minority language communities. It asks again to establish a language diversity center in the field of regional and minority languages. And one specific request that there was in there was that research would be looking more at this issue of minorities and recognize its added value. So this project that is going to be kicked off today, the Rise Up, is squarely within this request by citizens to have research look into this issue more closely. In response to this citizens' request, there was a communication issued by the Commission, in which, again, we underline how inclusion and respect for the rich cultural diversity of Europe is one of the Commission's main priorities and objectives. However, we think that in order to defend this cultural diversity, we do not need further legal acts, but that we can make the follow-up to a lot of the ideas that were raised in the Minority Safe Pack with the instruments that we have. No? And in the case of Horizon Europe, for instance, we already announced that we would be devoting more attention to research in order to help the preservation of endangered languages. And this is exactly what is happening now. So there is a lot that the project needs to live up to. So we are finally having a big research project on the topic, and we are very excited that work is starting on this important topic. Then I would like you that Erasmus Plus is available for this, including regional and minority languages. So sometimes we don't remember that, but it is already possible to mobilize the increased budget of Erasmus Plus for any kind of project that has to do with promotion of these languages. And actually, this is already happening. We are promoting, we are supporting through Erasmus Plus a lot of projects that have to do with regional and minority languages. But moreover, since 2021, with the new phase of Erasmus Plus, we have had available new possibilities for small-scale partnerships that can be easier for small organizations to participate. So for smaller projects with lesser funding, you can have less partners and less paperwork to apply for projects. Yes, and then to remind you that for Erasmus Plus, the support for language learning and language diversity are actually an overarching objective, which means that any project that has this as an objective is going to be looked at favorably. Sorry. And yes, here is what I just said. Erasmus Plus has been funding many projects which support regional and minority languages. We published in 2018 a brochure to give some examples of what was happening, but we are currently updating it. I am confident we can publish in a month or so an updated brochure with many more projects that have been that are happening or that have been happening in not long ago, and that are in this area of regional and minority languages. And what I am hoping is that once this project examines good practices and what can be done to support endangered languages, that Erasmus Plus can be then used to carry out those ideas, etc., that will come out of the project. Horizon Europe, of course, is another very important piece of finance for linguistic diversity, and in the Cluster 2, Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society, precisely we have that research should contribute to protecting languages as part of our cultural heritage and preserving endangered languages. And it is in this context that this project, Rise Up, is being funded. We also have another program, Creative Europe, that is relevant because one of the targets, again, is to promote the cultural and linguistic diversity and European heritage. In this program, for instance, we include support for literary translation in all languages, also regional and minority languages or endangered languages. And I think that is the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anna. Are there any immediate pressing questions for our policy officer, who has made it quite clear that this project is part of a larger EU agenda to foster minority languages, endangered languages, and cultural diversity across Europe? No, it seems you've convinced everyone of the importance of Rise Up, which means that I will, thank you, which means that I can happily hand over to my colleague, Damir Haskovic, who is going to do the project presentation now. I yield the floor to you. You'll have that.
Just, is it synchronized with? All right, perfect. So, welcome again from my side. So, my name is Damir Haskovic. I'm the project supervisor for Rise Up project, and at this moment, I just want to also mention the true coordinator of the project Rise Up, which is Gisela Hagmeier, who has rounded up this great team and won this great proposal. As it seems, this is the running team. We have a lot of, let's say, sick leaves in this week, and that's why I stepped in to sort of present the project and to kickstart this great initiative. Having said that, we already had a kickoff meeting yesterday where with the consortium we went through these sort of overview of the projects, of the objectives, of the work plan, of our obligations, of basically the impacts that we want to achieve. And for today, I want to present more from the perspective of how we kickstarted the project, what we want to achieve, what the background and the concepts are for our new participants in the audience and as well in the YouTube video stream. So hopefully you will follow us and that we can together achieve these great results. Because the project, as you know, has started 1st of February. Our kickoff was yesterday, so we indeed cannot show you any results and outcomes as is, but we can show you what we plan to do and what our context and main focus and goals are. So, as a recap, for those who are not aware, this is a Horizon Europe project. It's a CSA, meaning Coordination and Support Action. The total duration of the project will be 36 months. So as said, starting from the 1st of February and expecting to finish at end of January 2026. The amount of person months is 295, where we have 8 partners from 6 countries and the overall budget of 1.8 million euros. The main topic description where the whole idea has started and how the proposal gained life was focused on this problem. When we have the languages, when they disappear, our cultural diversity is impoverished. So being that we are in the European Union, diversity is what binds us, it makes us stronger. So this has been identified as a very important aspect to tackle. So we have many regional, minority, and local languages which are spoken in the European Union, but they are in danger of disappearing for various reasons. As a result, the project Rise Up aims to sort of create this European ecosystem. We want to give power to these local communities that they indeed create all the necessary steps and to avoid the disappearance of such languages. First and foremost, I would also like to present you the consortium. So as said, we are a consortium of 8 partners coming from 6 countries. So as we said, Minds and Sparks, based in Vienna, Austria, research organization. We are coordinating this project with help of our partners from University of Tartu, from Estonia, then University of Vienna, also in Vienna, Austria, then Lemongrass Communications from Barcelona, Spain, Neurogames from Köln, Germany, Youth of European Nationalities from Leeuwarden, Netherlands, and School of Oriental and African Studies from London, UK, together with University of Roehampton, also from London, UK. So, the project context, what are we talking about here? We have the language as a group marker. So this is more from an individual perspective. Whenever we hear a person talk a specific language, we oftentimes have our own conclusions where this person belongs to which social groups, to which ethnic groups. And this oftentimes has connotations of sort of a background of this person, their educational background, their regional association, etc., etc. As opposed to language as a reference to cultural and history of the speaker community. So now we're not talking about an individual perspective. We are talking about a more social group perspective. So it's about the associated heritage, the tradition, the roots, and where this individual associates with. And this, as a result, we are here. This can have basically 2 connotations. You can have positive connotations when somebody feels pride for their root, but also we have sort of negative connotations of historical trauma, because these endangered languages historically are not aligned with the policies of one's nation. So this brings us to the language policies, where in order to preserve this unique national identity, oftentimes these minority languages are not fitting in. So oftentimes people feel the need not to learn these kind of languages. They are ashamed, their job opportunities are lessened, so less and less younger people have the incentive to in fact learn these kind of languages. And in fact this is not good, because it brings to the impoverishment and the endangerment status of such languages. So that's why it's important to kind of reclaim this heritage that we show to younger people and people who hadn't had the chance to learn these languages, that this brings indeed positive values in the diversity. So we want to create this societal effect of support for diversity, and Rise Up project here wishes to do so. Because when we talk about societal effect, it's only normal that you will have groups of people that come together and they have their own languages. So we are talking about a smaller geographical location, and there will be different groups of people talking different languages. Oftentimes, this has a negative connotation. When you have a national language and then groups of minority languages, this is not seen as something positive or wishful for a region. But when in fact research does show that diversity and sort of support and facilitation of the diversity is very much good for social cohesion and communication within community. That's from one side. From other side, ability of a single person to speak multiple languages has been also associated with increased sort of cognitive abilities and preservance sort of their cognitive abilities. So it's very, very important that we underline these positive effects of diversity and multiple languages, and that we avoid the endangered status of such minority languages. So this ties in with sustainable linguistic ecologies, where Project Rise Up answers to these challenges, and we want to indeed underline these positive aspects and to include the stakeholders, so the native speakers, the speakers who haven't had the chance to learn the new language, beginners, etc., etc. So it's up to us that we involve the local communities, to empower them, and that we really boost this multicultural aspect. And as said before, so one of the main tasks, one of the big tasks, is to identify already existing status quo, status of the art, if you will. So what are the good practices? What are the methods that were successful? What are the methods that were not successful, and why? So that we can learn from past experiences and that we can create guidelines, methodologies, strategies, and most important also policy advice for the policy makers and how to continue on a level of the European Union. And based on that, the project itself will tackle the endangered languages of the communities in 5 case studies. So I will show you in the next slides which these 5 regions are focused on. For the objectives of the project itself, so we basically focus on 5 main objectives, which first is the analysis of past and present language policies, language ideologies, sociolinguistic, legal, and economic reasons for language endangerment. So as said, it's really about gathering all of this and presenting this to the public, to the policymakers, because in fact it is a very vast field and it takes a lot of work to sort of categorize this and put it within sort of a structured overview of the data and all these aspects. Next objective would be to define a European language promotion ecosystem, which aims at ensuring linguistic diversity by giving voice and support to smaller linguistic communities in order to empower them. So we are talking about, next to this analysis part of the project, it will be very much important to provide a tool or a set of tools, methodologies, and sort of a technological aspect to this project. So it will be very important during our discussions in the project of what will be the best approach, how we can achieve the best impacts with these development aspects. Which brings us to objective number 3, it's the development of the guidelines, methodologies, and digital tool sets to revitalize said languages. Next, the facilitation and enhancement so that we can exchange the resources, tools among the endangered languages communities. So you want to give them all the help so that we can boost and we can kickstart interest in potentially also younger people, potentially maybe through aspects of gamification, local events, so anything that we help them recognize that it's not indeed bad to know multiple languages. The more you know, the richer you are for it. And it's important that they do not feel stigmatized just because they speak a minority language. This should be celebrated. And finally, the link between the past and present language policies, language ideologies, and sociolinguistic, legal, economic reasons for language endangerment. So, as we said before, that we are aware of multiple reasons why this is happening and how to sort of combat it. As we said, so for the 5 case studies, we are talking about Aranes, Aromanian, Burgenland Croatian, Cornish, and Seto, each associated with their sort of country where they are primarily spoken. And here we can also see their political status, which is very important. And here we can see that in most cases they are in fact acknowledged as an official language, but there are a few cases where they are not acknowledged as a minority language. So here it's important to see what are these reasons, political, social, et cetera, et cetera. So they are always, it's very complex when we're dealing with ethnicities, nationalities, et cetera. So there are oftentimes multiple reasons. It's not as straightforward. And then here we have just an interesting column with the approximation of speakers. So for Aranes, we have almost 2,600 plus 2,100 of non-native. This is a statistic from 2001. For Aromanian, where we have an estimation of almost 210,000. Burgenland Croatian, where we have almost 50 to 60,000, of which approximately we have almost 20,000 in Burgenland. Then we come to Cornish from UK, which is an interesting fact where we have the less known traditional speaker of Cornish died in 1914. But thanks to these revival methodologies and efforts, there are now estimated 3,000 speakers. But this is always sort of a personal opinion of oneself. So maybe there are 2,000 of whom they claim fluency, but it's an interesting fact nonetheless. And then last but not least, the CEDO from Estonia, where we have around 13,000 active participants or speakers of the language. Now, we come to the expectations and outcomes of the project itself. So it helps that we visualize it more in a more graphic overview. We are talking about several outcomes that are focused on the local deployment and linguistic ecosystems. So here we want to engage with the stakeholders, but first and foremost to identify who these stakeholders are, who is the piece of the puzzle, and how to interconnect them, how to engage them, how do we create this sort of roadmap of the engagement and to bring about these policies. We are also talking about interacting with these stakeholders for requirements themselves. So we can have, as a consortium, our own set of ideas how to develop these tools, tool sets. But it really is about the people who are intended to use said tools. So it's really about asking them, engaging with them, and extracting as much as possible sort of helpful inputs on how we should go about the development aspects of the project. So the main outcome here, I would say, is the involvement for the project. Then coming to the collection or the desk research part, so that we really, as a consortium, invest efforts, that we identify the relevant data, that we engage in collections, that we identify relevant projects, initiatives, legislations, etc. So that we really see what's important for us and what's not so important, because it's all about resources and the efficient use of time. So in the end, we want to establish sort of a useful set of collections that will feed into the actual production of the guidelines, strategies, and methodologies. So we come to the third outcome, which is focused on the language safeguarding and revitalization methods. As we already mentioned multiple times, that it's really about making sense of this collected body of information, and that we really understand, try to understand why this is happening within the European Union, and that we can produce something which will be useful for all the stakeholders, from citizens up to the policymakers. Here again, so from the perspective of the resource exchange, we want to also ensure that it's not about just collection for the sake of the project, or that we hide these results within multiple deliverables which are sensitive and not meant for the public. It's about using the resources, the taxpayers' money, and that we really show and make available these results within our multiple public deliverables, which, after being accepted, hopefully, by the European Commission, that they are made available through our project website, through Cordis, and every other available resource out there. So it's about sharing the knowledge gained. Then, from the other perspective, we are mentioning the development of the digital toolset. So here, it's really about that we enhance the gamification potentially methodology, that we utilize the proper user interface and user experience aspects, which are very important for engagement. So you can create the best tool in the world. If it's not usable, or if it's not approachable, or that the users don't see an extra added value within these tools, then the product, I'm sorry to say, will not achieve its impact. So it's very important that we also approach this with much care and love, so to say. Furthermore, it's also, we cannot do this alone. We need external stakeholders, we need other projects, initiatives, we need to learn from them. So it's also very important and aligned so with how European Commission wishes to see that the projects are run. It's the dissemination aspect, it's the awareness raising, it's the synergies, it's the clustering. So with all these different aspects, during our yesterday's discussion, it's really important that we start with these aspects as soon as possible, that we do not wait. We have to utilize all of our expertise, contacts, networks, next to desk research, that we really identify with whom we can and should cooperate with. So to this end, There will be a series of conferences on various topics, a series of workshops in the local sites that we really engage with the local communities. Then some sort of, let's say, networking events. So prime example, something like this, which is on the European level. And thank you again to the European Commission and the House of the European Union for this event, because usually such events usually happen when you have results and we are already a little more deeper within the project, but this is indeed a great start, and you can see the importance for the European Commission that they are putting on this project, and that they really want to show that it's important for the policies and for the European Commission in general. So thank you again for that. Then a series of policy roundtables where we indeed have to include the policymakers and the representatives of the endangered communities, that we bring the two parties together, and that through dialogue we understand what's going on and why this is necessary. And then finally, at the end of the project, that we organize a final conference or thematic workshops so that we exchange what we have done. So vice versa from here. Now, this is what we aim to do, and at the end of the project, that we really show what we have done and how it provides added value. So there are also potential virtual spaces, webinars, etc. So this all, of course, depends on our internal, let's say, project meetings and how we will reach our decisions, what is best for the project and the impacts. Here, so the best, I think, added value for an event like this, it's also to show that we exist, that the project is here, that we have already our visual identities, that this is already established, and that we will soon be ready to ask for the public's or the external representatives and stakeholders' helps and inputs. To this end, we are, of course, now just starting to think who are the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders for the project itself, and here we are talking about potentially maybe sort of enablers. So these are all your associations, networks, initiatives, which will sort of facilitate the exchange of knowledge, the communications, the workshop, etc. So we have to see who these potential enablers could be. Then maybe we are talking potentially about suppliers. So we are certainly not the first ones that are trying to make maybe these sort of tool sets. It will be interesting to see what other suppliers or let's say suppliers of existing products and services which might not be specifically made for this purpose but could be reutilized for us, so that we see the market landscape and we can sort of establish contact with them and see if there is a room for cooperation. Of course, researchers, academia, scientists, linguists, translators, interpreters, these are all relevant persons that should be and potentially would like to be included, and that their opinion is also heard on these matters. Potentially, so we said also the clusters that we really want to identify past, so completed projects, but also running projects and oncoming projects to see how much we are aligned and synchronized. Very important stakeholder group would be the policymakers and the regulators. So we are talking about public authorities, regulators, funding bodies, etc., etc. So because the results of this project will, or most likely, should influence further, let's say, funding topics, and we are in a position to sort of, but hopefully dictate the future direction of this sort of context and how the European Commission wishes to fund further projects. And last but not least, of course, it's the citizens, it's the local communities and general audience that might be just interested in such aspects, and that we raise awareness, which is in today's environment, it's very important that we indeed show that diversity is good in this context, that this brings it enriches a society. So, along this line, I would just like to take an opportunity that we show you the already established communication channels, and we invite everybody to start visiting, let's say, for instance, our project website, which is available at the riseup.projekt.eu. So here, at the moment, of course, it has been only established. We have the basic information about the project, about the consortium, contact, if you will, but as within 2 to 3 weeks, we are already starting with the news section where we will inform the public about what the project is doing, new and noteworthy, let's say, news items about the project. Everything which relates our efforts, it will be reported within the news section of the website. Furthermore, the Twitter account is also active. We already are starting to see the increase in followers. Again, we invite you to join us, follow us, reshare our efforts and posts, and please join. Then for the LinkedIn account, this is also established, so it's available under this link as well. So all links are available through our website. You don't have to remember the large sort of URLs. Everything is available through the website. And then the YouTube itself, which is used for today's streamcast as well, and we will use YouTube for multiple purposes. First would be the archive, so all of these workshops, events, if and when they are recorded, that they are not lost. Even if when the project is over, this is sort of a outcome which should be preserved, and that future projects or interested parties see how we tackled these items, and to view interesting discussions and exchange of opinions. And last but not least, so this is also part of our visit card, and the idea is also that people can scan this either on the screen, so this will be handed out to our partners whenever we go to conferences and dissemination events, that we make it as much as possible and simple for the interested parties to come, to join, that we utilize really the offline approach and the online approach. The offline being our printed materials, and the online being this digital communication channels. Having said that, I hope I was on time and it was somewhat interesting, and I really wish to thank you again to all of our partners and to our guests, and then if there are questions, we are here to answer them. So, Jacqueline, thank you very much.
Right, thank you for this wonderful presentation of the project and situating it in the wider context of what it hopes to be. Any questions? Take your time, no pressure. Yes, please.
We can come back to the consortium itself, and of course information is available on the project website. So as said, our colleague Gisela, who was the originator of the idea, through her connections and expertise, which is her background in the cultural diversity and languages, she started building up the proposal, and as you do within these Horizon Europe projects, you have to identify what the topic requests. So you always have, it's never specified which partners exactly you need to have, but what would be good that you cover. So usually it's that you have to have a research aspect, academia, universities, you have to have civil society, so access to a large body of let's say, stakeholders. You have to have partners that are experienced in management and coordination, dissemination, exploitation. So usually it's either by just blind contacting or personal contact. So you have, European Commission has multiple tools that allows you to find relevant partners through their sort of system. And you can see which partner has the relevant expertise, project experience, et cetera, et cetera. So I would, long story short, it's based on personal networks and the tools that the European Commission provides you for finding the relevant project partners. I hope this answers you the question of how the consortium was formed, or do you have like a more specific question for the partners themselves?
It does not exactly.
Okay. Okay, no. But what was the question, the specific question?
Yeah, I'm wondering maybe if the partners knew each how they were identified. I mean, you are saying that that partially they come from the European Commission database, and they're suggested by the European Commission, I imagine. I don't know. Yeah.
No, the European Commission will not suggest. It's up to the proposal sort of coordinator that, based on your prior experiences, if you worked with them. So of course there were partners that cooperated before as well. So it's never straightforward. So there's sort of a process when you build up the proposals and how you wish to invite the relevant project partners. I don't know if any partners wish to add something here, but please.
Yes, I could. Maybe that answers your question. I think it's also very much based on expertise. Because as we discussed that in quite a lot of detail yesterday, each partner has special expertise. For example, in endangered languages, in a lot of experience already working with endangered language communities, or in my case, multilingualism, which is the basis for it. So it's also very strongly expertise-based.
That should be the prime reason, that you're inviting somebody based on their expertise, not just because you know somebody. This is the main reason, yeah.
Would you mind breaking down the budget a bit?
What's available on the
like,
Cordis?
I don't know, yeah. Try to be as transparent as you can be in front of us. But with 1.8 billion, it's quite a number, but maybe to... if we could know, like, what is planned on, I don't know, academia, what is planned on publications or I don't know, events, yeah.
Exactly. So what you're mentioning falls under the other costs, which covers the dissemination, the publications, organization of events. So this is always part of the European budgeting structure. So again, these are more confidential parts. This is discussed internally, not for the audiences. What you see, so the transparency part is, this is the budget that has been allocated to the project. But anything other than that, so individual allocations, you can go to Cordis and you can see the consortium partners and how much each of them has received. This is not a secret, so it's publicly available information, if this is what information you need. Yeah. But on the other part of your question, so yes, it is a lot. So 1.8 million for a CSA, this can be considered a little higher budget, let's say, but this is a good indication of let's say, expected duration of the project, the number of partners, and sort of general importance. You know, it's not just an afterthought. Oh, let's do some diversity languages. It's, in fact, as you see, the European Commission is here. They are very much interested. They are pushing this. It's very important. So it's also a good indication that it's not about just coming and talking. It's about doing the work and achieving results. They want to see results at the end of the project. They want to see the progress. They will track it, and they want to be informed when they reach their policies. That's very important to mention.
Thank you for that question. Always a very important one with academic projects. Mm-hmm. Any further questions here? Yes, please, behind you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was more interested in the cooperation among the partners. Like, is it supposed that every partner has a particular focus on a specific case study, or how is the work among the partners organized?
Basically, based on their expertise, we have 7 work packages. So this is how the work is organized, and each of the partners, based on their sort of expertise and experience, they will lead the individual work package with the set of subtasks where they are either the leader or another partner has also contributing roles. It's important that each of these partners are not working in a vacuum. So this is a management part of the project where we have to ensure that each work package is aware what they are doing, that we have regular meetings, and that the decisions are being made. And here I would also, as discussed yesterday, it needs to be underlined, that we avoid overlaps. Whenever you have large number of deliverables and work packages and partners that are spread out throughout Europe, it's important that we have mechanisms in place that we ensure which deliverable or which task is focused on its specific domain. So there can be little overlaps or so to say bridges between the deliverables documents and the work being done, but it's important that we don't say the same thing in multiple locations. This will not be efficient. Yeah.
How were the partners chosen? How were the partners chosen? I mean, was the decision of the countries, or was every country asked?
No. This is more on an organization level. So this was already kind of discussed with the previous question, that it is sort of encouraged that you have a spread of countries. It's not good that you have a European consortium project and then you have partners from 1 or 2 countries when you have, let's say, 8 partners. So it's very much about including different regions, different perspectives that you include. Let's say, for these use case studies, you have to choose them on a principle of not similarity, but in fact differences that you can learn. What are the different sort of political factors that affect the status of this endangered language within the specific, let's say, political environment, geographical environment, so that you can find differences, but also similarities between approaches. That will be the main purpose of a case study, that we are able to learn from those.
All right, for the moment I see no further hands up. And given that we just talked about the importance of communication, a lot of communication will happen on a formal basis, horizontally, regularly throughout the project, but also informally over coffee and cake, and that's where we are heading now. For a little break, after which we'll have the podium discussion where you will see the partners in action addressing the challenges that lie ahead. So see you in a couple of minutes.
Thank you.
Countries, because we don't want to look at only at what the EU policies are, but we want to see, well, what are the language policy initiatives like on the community level. And at the same time, we want to understand what is the context where this language is living, and a communicative tool between people. And this means that we want to understand who are the stakeholders, so who are the ones who kind of drive the language being disseminated from generation to generation, who are involved in that. And that means quite a bit of research with the communities. And there we are really going to rely on our project partners and really look forward to what kind of information we get from these wonderful examples of the variety of people and languages in Europe. That's all for me.
All right, very
Shall
good.
I pass it on?
They all have their own microphones, but you're welcome to continue, Julia.
So my name's Julia Salabank. I'm Professor of Language Policy and Revitalisation at School of Oriental African Studies at the University of London. Bit of a mouthful. Yeah, so I'm leading on work package 3, which is looking at ecosystems, language ecosystems, particularly looking at the case studies that we've identified, but also in general for minority languages. And I think what we're doing is a kind of complement or counterweight to what you're doing. So if you're looking at the policy level, and I can see when you're talking there, when we identified yesterday, there's considerable possibility for overlap. So we need to collaborate carefully and to think about who's going to do what and how do we interpret that data. So when we look at the ecosystems of the languages, we're looking, again, as you say, at the stakeholders, who speaks them, and the context. We're looking at the vitality of the languages. So how many speakers do they have? What are the conditions for maintaining a minority language, and under what conditions does a language become endangered, and how can we identify ways in which we can perhaps arrest or reverse that process, which then feeds into some of the other work packages. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say something else, but I can't remember.
You? Any volunteers?
Yeah, that's fine. Hello, welcome everybody, and my name is Eva Doran-Eppler. I'm Associate Professor of Linguistics at the University of Roehampton and in London, and we are very glad to be part of this EU project. And my role in the project is to bring together the case studies, the 5 case studies Damia introduced. And for me, one of the most important aspects of the project is to work out the similarities and differences in the ecosystems and in the political situation and in the education situation of the 5 case study languages. From past experience, we expect similarities between the minoritized languages and the minoritized language communities, but we also expect differences. And to work out these similarities and differences will be very important, I think, for us to identify the best possible methods to revitalize these languages and support communities, but also foster very much self-driven. That's very important to me as well.
Thank you.
Okay, my name is Eva Vetter from University of Vienna, the Language Teaching and Learning Unit. And our work package is work package 4, which is about methods, tools, and strategies that foster proficiency in endangered languages. So that means we will engage in research that is in collaboration with the communities. We will do field work in order to understand what is already done in order to use, to teach, to learn these languages. And at the end, we should have taken stock of the practices, of the tools, and not only for one community, but for 5 communities. And we will have an overview on it so that we can compare, maybe find gaps which can be inspiring for the communities themselves. But I think the most interesting part and the most important part is that we really have to do with people who use and learn these languages, that we have to collaborate intensively, which means we can be a resource for each other. We learn, we listen, we observe, but at the same time, and hopefully this will be the case, the researchers can also be a resource for the communities, because researchers have a lot of time and they are even paid for thinking about questions like, what is a language? What is multilingualism? And all those endangered languages are in multilingual contexts. And language users often do not have the time to do that. And so we hope, and for me this is the most interesting part, that we can be inspiring for each other.
Okay, my name is Yash. I'm from Newer Games in Cologne, Germany. And we will be leading the work package on gamification, so work package 6. And the basic idea behind it is how we can use techniques that we use in game development or in gamification or engagement enhancing into revitalization of the languages. So how can the communities use it? How can people trying to learn these languages can be more engaged in doing so, and we can get more people to learn these languages, and also create a set of digital tool set which incorporates existing solutions, or we build some new solutions on top of them to actually produce this engagement level and increasing basically the use of all the languages, all the 5 languages that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for introducing yourselves and providing some context for the audience. I would also like to bring in Konstantin at this point, because our next round of questions is going to target the biggest challenges of the individual work packages and the project as a whole. And one we already identified was access to the communities, to the speaking communities, and their needs and how they can be involved and how we can work with them. And I'd be intrigued to hear, first of all, who you are and what your view is on the project and what it could contribute.
Okay, hello, my name is Konstantin. I'm living in Vienna. I'm part of the Burgenland Croatian minority. Dobar dan. Za sve u streamu i znam da ki me ovdje razumite, ja mislim, vi me možda razumite, Reske me ne isto razumi, a da ovo je sada primjer za gradišansko-hrvatski jezik. Gradišanski Hrvati su isto situirani u Beču, a da postoju i neke institucije u Beču. So there's a small... it's not only, or the Burgenland Croats are not the only minority in the rural area of Burgenland, but also in the capital of Austria, in Vienna, but also in Bratislava, for example. And there's some cultural associations, or maybe even other project as the one that I'm leading, which is a magazine called Novi Glas. Some of you know it already. I have also some issues with me that I unfortunately did not unpack and bring onto the stage. So that's my background. And also I saw that YEN, the Youth of European Nationalities, is part of, or your partner, which is a network throughout Europe within the minority youth organizations. To me, it's interesting to see what like the root of this whole project is. I think it was discussed that there was like a citizen initiative back in 2013 or 14, the Minority Safe Pack initiative. The EU has not done great in supporting anything from this initiative. So I understand that the Commission tries to support projects as this one. In supporting minority languages and coming up with new solutions to the problems of endangered languages in Europe. So I see it kind of positively in that sense. Okay, it's a project that actually tackles the problems of minorities. Whereas I can also say, okay, the EU is not supportive in any ways or in too many ways, but that's not part of your problem. I think that's a EU problem. So I'm very much looking forward to how maybe we can support, or like the minority communities can support the outcome of this project. I think like the YEN has minority members, at least to the Burgenland Croats. There's a connection, and I think there's also a connection to the Aromunian and Vlach communities in Europe. So you have at least two languages that, or two communities you can connect to. And I'm also looking forward to how the Cornish language will be tackled from this project. Maybe in general, when it comes to, as I understand this project, okay, it should create a digital tool that helps not only one language, but more than one language. And minorities tend to be lacking digital solutions to their problems. Like I think two weeks ago, or at the beginning of this year, the Burgenland Croats got a dictionary app So it was like, okay, it was long overdue to have it, but finally it was launched, and I use it in I guess every day. Yeah. So that's one thing and even if you're not working maybe in the minority field as I am, you will use this kind of tool because it's very helpful not to always have to unpack some sort of dictionary or find a website that provides this solution. So yeah, that's maybe one thing you could do, and I'm excited whatever you come up with. But I think the digital, like there's a very, very large digital niche you can discover here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to respond to this input? There was quite a lot in there.
Yeah, sorry for that.
Oh no, we thank you for that.
I can say something on this because it's interesting that you said that you recently got a dictionary app, and the idea for our tool set is somewhat that we can incorporate such dictionaries and which are used by endangered languages or minority groups in terms of languages, but as well as other tools that you're quite used to for any other language, but they're just not available in terms of minority languages. And that's I think, should be helpful, I would assume, yeah.
For example, I was trying to chat with ChatGPT this week and to find out what endangered or minority languages they already offer. And Manx is one of the, Breton as well. But Manx is an example of a very, very small language, like smaller than the Burgenland Croats. I think at the level of the Cornish, probably, yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe we won't go that high in terms of creating an AI, but I think, yeah, we would be in a place where I think the idea to revitalize or to create more engagement would be solved as well, apart from the actual solution, a dictionary, for example, or translation app solves. Yeah.
Yes. Eva, did you want to comment on it?
Just one short commentary on your criticism of the European Union. Right, okay. But the important instruments, such as the Charter for Regional and Minority Languages, and for example, for the Burgenland Croatians, one problem is that they have territorial protection, but many of them don't live in this territory, but they live in Vienna. And in the report of the Charter of Regional and Minority Languages, you can read that this is a big problem that should be tackled by the Austrian authorities. And so it's right, there's not enough support. And I really enjoyed when you talked in your Novi class about our project, saying for endangered languages and other Leidensgenossinnen. Yes, it's right. Endangered languages have to fight for everything. Yeah, for education, for being able to use the languages. Nothing is given. At least. I don't want to defend the European Union, but they point to important issues. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Very good. Yes, I think it's one of the big challenges also that we are dealing with these 5 case studies, but that we're hoping that they're gaining traction and that we can apply them to other minoritized languages. And I think that's one of the EU's priorities here, because they want to use the results of this research project to create policies and also to gain traction with this project to attract further funding for further projects and revitalize or vitalize, maintain these communities. And that would be one question also regarding the challenges of how you see this dynamic between dealing with very individual, idiosyncratic speech communities, also with a very different, diverse geographical location and where speakers live and how that overlaps with nationality, ethnicity and identity, and creating a sort of streamlined framework or model that can then be applied to other languages like that. And I know that's a challenging question, but we're just here to open up problems and issues and gather ideas and have a free flow of thoughts on that subject.
if I may, I would start with work package 2, which addresses policies, politics in particular, and actually one of the challenges that we foresee is the feasibility of the policies that are crafted. So we really try to do ethnographic studies on looking into it, because there are policies there already. But how do they really work for the community? And the other big challenge is diversity that is related to identification, because the communities are not homogeneous. There are different ideas of what is the future of the community, and how should we deal with that there are different voices in the community who foresee what they should be doing and what is the task ahead of them is different from the neighbors, for example. So that is one of the main questions that we need to ask when we are talking about communities. And then also the whole issue of minority. So we are talking about minorities in Europe, but if we take these different states that are represented here as kind of the targets with the case studies, actually, the identification of minorities can be such a diverse issue, depending on the history of the country, depending on the history of the communities in the country, and then also when was this shift into becoming a minority happening? Is it down to migration? Is it down to shift of borders? Is it down to shift of political systems, world history playing a role in it? Or is it related to population movement, which is something that is a reality in Europe today, and it has been going on in decades and decades. And here I want to bring in the UNESCO definition of a generation. So actually generation, yes, it is 20 to 25 years. So next generation, then it's 50 years, and then the third generation, 70 years. And actually when we think about when the big rupture in Europe happened in the Second World War. So there are already so many decades have passed. So this means that the whole issue of who the minoritized languages are is much more complicated than it looks on the surface.
Yes, please, Julia.
I wanted to address the issue of I think we can call it particularism versus universalism, because I think a lot of people get involved in activities to support their language because they want to get in touch with their identity, they want to get in touch with their heritage, and they're not necessarily interested in anybody else's language. And they're not interested necessarily in one-size-fits-all solutions. And I've had that response from some people that I've worked with and talked to. Oh, what do they know about our area? So I think it's important to work with people like the Youth of European Minorities organization, and also to make links between communities. Because as Jacqueline said, one of the things we want to do is to try to create solutions which could be more generalizable, which could be used by more than one community. So we're looking to, as you said, for similarities and also for, if you like, compare and contrast. But I think we can use this opportunity to try and broaden awareness of commonalities between minoritized groups and how languages and people, because languages don't become minoritized without the people that are speaking them becoming minoritized. So we need to take all of those socio-political issues into account and try to raise awareness of how they can be tackled. And I think that a minority group is by definition minority and small, although some of these minorities are actually relatively large compared to others, we use the word minoritise because you don't have to be a small group to suffer from discrimination in this way. But I think by raising awareness, we can also raise awareness of these common problems and get people together to think about common solutions as well. So we can raise kind of awareness of this language endangerment, language minoritisation as a process that's going on across Europe, across the world, and we have to join together to try and tackle that.
Mm. Very important point, yes.
So, yes. Yeah.
No.
Okay. I could answer nothing to add. Really nothing to add, but I think for us, in this dynamic constellation that you have talked about already, the most difficult, the most challenging will be that we won't talk about, or we don't conceive language as being something outside of the mind and the bodies. Language is not something that has to be saved or safeguarded and so on. But language is in our minds, in our bodies. Language does not exist outside the humans. And so we have to engage with the people who use, learn, teach these languages, and be open for how they conceive these languages in their identifications. And so I'm always aware of the danger of essentialism, so that a language is not automatically a marker of identity. It can be very strong, but it's not necessarily the case. And so I think in the dynamic world we are living in, this has to be considered, reconsidered in the context of demographic conditions that are to be described with transmigration, post-migration, remigration, and other very important conditions that determine how we live together.
Yes, any further comments here? Yes?
I think it feeds in with what everybody else was saying. I think one of the big challenges of the project is actually interconnecting the communities and creating a platform that this interconnection potentially even spreads beyond the project to other minoritized language communities. And I would like to kind of quote the project proposal, which has listed as one of its challenges ingrained negative attitudes and deficit ideologies towards minority groups and endangered languages. But I would like to also turn that around a little bit, because in my own experience, what also happens due to being minoritized, sometimes communities of smaller languages become a little bit inward-looking. And in this respect, I very much hope that the young people, the young persons, and Yen, for example, help us, because young people, by their very nature, are outward-looking and seek international connections. So I hope through the special focus of the project on young persons, we will be able to combine the local of the specific communities with the European and potentially even international.
Very important point. Yes, Julia, go ahead.
And also to identify and to challenge and to turn around these negative attitudes and ingrained ideologies. Because I think what we're finding more and more in our research is that people are finding strength in their indigenous languages, in their heritage languages, and using that for not just personal revitalization, but also to revitalize their communities. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was going to bring in Yash on this point because I'm curious what that all means for the identification of the user and how you're going to combine elderly speakers from rural communities with younger speakers who want to keep the language alive and maybe engage in new projects or do theater productions in these languages. How can we work with this, and what can you do for us?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is one of the big challenges, because for a digital toolkit to work for younger generation, it's a lot easier to work. They're digital natives, and they have the capacity and the intellectuality, and they've been raised up with technology. But when it comes to an older generation who might be more native speakers of the language and have been speaking it their entire life, I think there needs to be some sort of a social aspect to it as well that enables the young people to connect to the old people and vice versa. And this language exchange or knowledge exchange can happen with that. So I think one of the things that we would focus on in trying to figure out how is the best way to do it and what are the tools we can integrate or develop to enable such a communication. And I think one of the points that you mentioned, that the language is not only spoken in Austria, it's also in Bratislava or other places. And I think just a society or a community of language speakers, irrelevant of the geographical location, could be interesting to tackle such a problem as well. So, thanks.
Very good. We all look forward to seeing that in action. Yes, please.
Something. I think this was really important because you opened the speakers, for example, of Burgenland, Croatian, in Vienna, we said. But with the other languages, we also need to take the other diasporas into consideration, because Christine mentioned movement, people movement. Urbanization is a big issue, and urbanization can be a big chance. Digital literacy rates, for example, tend to be higher in urban centers. And Jacqueline and I had a discussion during the coffee break that, yes, we have this perception that minoritized languages are in the local centers, local rural centers, but this is definitely not always the case. There are also many members of the communities living in urban centers where there will be cultural community centers where the languages are spoken and used. And from personal experience, my husband is a speaker of an endangered language, and he learned the language better in London because he had a bigger speaker community available.
Yes, that's a very important point. Urbanization is one of the things where we also get new speak, of course, like new vocabularies being created. These people then return or visit rural communities with heritage speakers. So there are tensions also within the community, whether these languages should develop or not. Sometimes there are negative attitudes by the speakers themselves. So that's also something that we always have to bear in mind when we engage with the communities. Yeah, and there's a great division also between orality, like using the language predominantly in an oral context. For Scots Gaelic, for instance, you would have that. And then in the urban centers, it's more multimodal and overlaps. All of that will also feed into the gamification strategy, I assume. And that's a big point. I would like to bring this now from this rather academic angle to a personal one, because I think people are very interested to know how you chose the languages, what made you engage with them in the first place. I know some of you work with other languages than just the 5 ones that are the basis for the case studies, and we'd like to hear what brought you to them and if you identify with them or what role they play for you.
I may start.
Absolutely.
Well, talking about heritage, taking us down in history, kind of my personal history. When I was a young student, I joined a folk music group at the University of Tartu, which was particularly focusing on different singing styles in Estonia, in different regions, but also with the Finno-Ugri people who, well, there are Finns and Hungarians, but also smaller groups dispersed around Russia, around the Volga River and down to the Arctic regions. And in that group, one of the leaders of the group was of Seto origin. And he was always singing the Seto songs. And Seto traditional singing is rather different from the Northern Estonian singing style. It uses different pitches. It is kind of multitonal in comparison to a relatively using just one tone in Northern Estonia. So this was the personal engagement and then visiting the communities and interacting with people through singing. And that was one of the most important ways of learning a language, learning a different style of communication, and being together with the people. And eventually, the Seto were part of my PhD research that I did. So for me, it was really important to choose that community. And it has become quite a singular marker of minority representation in Estonia today.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
Would anyone like to continue?
It doesn't matter. The suggestion I made was Aromanian or Vlach, and I suggested Aromanian or Vlach because I taught a course on multilingualism, and my students could choose presentation topics. And one of my students said, "Can I talk about my language?" And I said, "What's your language?" And she said, "Aromanian." And she then gave a presentation, and I started looking into it. What I found particularly interesting about it is that it's spoken across so many different countries, because it's thus affected by different language policies, by very different language ecosystems, by very different education systems, by different organizational structures. And and I like the Balkan, so I love Balkan music, and that was another attraction.
Very good.
Okay, so I should say I don't have a personal link with Cornish. My own personal heritage language is Yenisei from the Channel Islands, Guernsey, and I learned that as an adult. So I have I've experienced personally, and this is what got me interested in endangered languages in the beginning. We were looking for, because we wanted a range of different situations for endangered languages within Europe. And I had a PhD student who actually studied the revitalization of Cornish, and she'll be a very useful resource for this project. And I think it's a really good example of a language which basically has come back from nothing to being relatively successful in terms of language revitalization. As we said earlier, possibly around 2,000 fluent speakers now. and to be recognised also under the European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages as well, and be recognised as a minority ethnicity in the UK as well. And as well as that, it's kind of got interesting because it's had to they've had to reinvent more or less Cornish because there wasn't anybody who actually spoke it when people tried to relearn it. There was a fair amount of literature, so there was a fair amount of debate, let's say, about which form, which kind of state, which date, if you like, of Cornish they should base the revival on, and a lot of the reinvention was based on the fact that it's kind of in a linguistic continuum between Welsh in the north and Breton to the south. And so they've taken kind of, okay, so how would the language have looked like, looking at it between these two other languages? And so there are lots of interesting things we can learn, for example, with regard to new terminology that people have been talking about already. How do we talk about modern things in our language? And if we want to involve young people, that's going to be really, really important. So it's an example that's quite at the other end of the spectrum, if you like, of endangerment from a minoritization from Burgenland Croatisch, for example, which is spoken, as you can see, very well by young people. Yeah. Okay.
Just one sentence. I was asked to choose an endangered language in Austria. There are some of them, and I chose Burgenland Croatian because we have the tradition to take our students to the Burgenland Croatian area for many, many years. And I have perceived this community as very active. Language death is everywhere, I would say, implicitly, and very open at the same time. And so I thought this would be a good chance.
I'm dying at this very moment. So it's too dramatic.
Well, I hope you're not, because my question for you is, what made you become such an active advocate for Burgenland Croatian? Like, what was the motivating factor?
I don't know. I think that okay. I think there are several speakers still, so I'm not the only one. You're glad I'm not the last speaker, like there was in 1914 Cornish, but I think that not too many have the opportunity to work in this language, for example. And me, when I was a student, and I don't know, realizing that this minority topic will never get rid of me, or I always pick it up again at university and in other projects as well. So I think that's the reason why I got so involved in it. And if you're, or at the moment, what I try to do is actually to produce content in Burgenland Croatian that might be interesting to young people, but that also explains a lot about Burgenland Croats in German, for example, or that tackles minority issues in other languages. For example, we just, I think on the weekend, published a commentary on the latest far-right posting from the Freiheitliche Jugend in Kärnten, and we kind of figured out, okay, we want to use our platform to publish a commentary in Slovenian and to translate it in German, translate it in Croatian as well. So there's things to do, and I think to me it was always like this: what is this? What am I missing in my minority? So when you study journalism and you see, okay, they have these fancy websites, they pop up on your social media all the time, and then you ask yourself, okay, where is my minority language in this context? And it, I think last week or so, I got a notification that the ORF Croatian editorial, or the Croatian show, is following Novi Glas. So it took them, I don't know, I think Facebook is now 14 years old. Something about that. So if you realize how slowly things go in this field, that a lot of also young people never had the chance to actually see the language where they're around. So this is to me, yeah, kind of okay. We want to try to implement the minority language into a field that is so omnipresent everywhere, but the languages are not. So tackling this and also the public broadcaster, the ORF in Austria did. I don't know. Okay, they don't have the personnel, but taking so long to establish a Facebook site is just actually it shows how severe the problems are actually. I don't know if I did answer the question now, but yeah, this is so you see a lot of missing things, and whatever we do, it's a novum in this field because nobody else does it. But if there were more funds to support young content producers, there would be more of this stuff. Yeah. So I don't know if that's a thing that Rise Up can tackle, but it's I think it should be a part of the political agenda to support this kind of stuff.
Thank you. It's very important to receive this input because that's, of course, how we want to target the things we then do. Like they are for the community and should be created with the communities. And it's also good to hear the personal motivating factors because we all know with projects, if it's tied in with your own kind of, what shall we call it, your own motivation, your own agency, that it sustains interest and would then lead to a lot of output and generate further streams of research interest and engagement. I have one question for the audience. Don't feel too relaxed. How many of you are speakers of a minoritized language or have ever started learning one? All right. And the online audience, any hands raised on our YouTube live channel? One person, thank you. May I ask which one it is?
It's Upper Sorbian in German.
All right, wonderful, wonderful.
Sorbish is the language, so it's in Germany, in Sachsen, and you get your own mic.
Yeah, Upper Sorbian in Germany.
Sorbian, thank you. The reason why I'm asking is because I recently also interviewed a speaker of a minoritized language, and we talked a lot about the resources available to people who want to learn the languages. Because of course, if we're dealing with like big dominant languages, it's very easy to have access to them. But with minoritized languages, that's not quite the case. And often resources are lacking, and we've heard about the dictionary, and there are not so many resources. And it's very hard to learn a language in isolation, especially if you want to actually use it in the community and you need speakers. So what role does that play? What role does the research project play in perhaps creating learning material or means of boosting access to such material in the minoritized languages? Also, that ties in, of course, with Yash.
When you say means of accessing such material, I think that's one of the things we would definitely be tackling, to have it in such a way that it's a lot easier to find the resources, to access them, and then also at the same time be more engaged while using them. So if the two reasons one could learn a language, right? One being that there is a need, and the other one being that there's a want. And I think people who really want to learn the language, the motivation is quite high. But when there's a need to learn the language, I think that's where we would come in and also through the gamification process also make it a little bit more fun, so that it's easier and probably a young person or someone who's just starting out stays longer in terms of learning the language. I think this would probably help in such a scenario with resource finding issue, let's say. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Do we have any other comments here? Because otherwise, I think I would open up the discussion to the audience here and on YouTube for questions. You can take some time, we'll check YouTube in the meantime to let it sink in and think of things you want to know or share. Yes.
Hello. Yes, I have a question because we were describing communities and multilingualism because now we are in a society that is moving. Not anymore the territories are marking the life of the people, because also what happens in the rural areas, the people goes to the cities. My question is, we could talk that also we are in a multi-community society, because in fact, not only that you your personal background links you to an endangered language. This is a community that is part of your personal life, but I think now the people wants to be in many communities, not only one. That in the past they were always, everything was marked by the land, by the economy of the area, by the politics of the local governors, etc. How do you see this evolution? Because I think this richness need also to evolve differently. This is the question is, how do you see these multi-community people living in Europe that is also not, they are not obliged to stay in a specific land or specific country?
I've said this several times before, but we've seen when we've been talking together and in our own research again and again that this kind of movement is often there's an older meaning of the word social networks, which is the community that you're in, the communities that you're in, and social network research has looked at the density of the networks you belong to, and in a modern sort of stereotyped social network or multi-community, if you like, then your ties are often looser, and that's often associated with wanting to learn dominant or wider, more widely spoken languages, so you can have access to wider communities. But I think what we've seen is that people often regret, often the generation after the one that didn't pass the language of their ancestors on, regrets that, and they want to reclaim it, and that's the situation I find myself in. So I think one of the things we need to try to get over, to try to educate people in, is that multilingualism is a benefit, because we keep saying this as mantra for linguists, but we're not very good at getting it over. And that's partly because of these negative attitudes, particularly towards minoritized languages. So multilingualism in minoritized languages is not seen as a benefit. It's seen as holding you back, in the words of my mother. And other researchers found that actually the benefits of multilingualism are actually linked to the status and the prestige of those languages. This has been found with research on Slovene, for example. So valorizing the multiple communities, if you like, and saying, okay, you want to go places, you want to get a good job with the EU, for example. You want to become an academic, but don't forget your home community. Don't forget your home language, because it's still something that is really important. And yeah, to me, it's brought untold joy to learn my heritage language, yeah, and speak it with my friends. Yeah.
May add something to it. Well, in a way, it is outdated to slightly the whole aspect of globalization, but at the same time, this is our human condition today. Globalization is there, and actually, with globalization, its parallel is localization, because the localism and having something exceptional, having the heritage that is exceptional, or a knowledge that is exceptional. It probably has a different status in the modern world than it was earlier. Also, speaking from the perspective of, well, Estonian is not an endangered language today. We are a valid state in the European Union, but actually Estonia, as the Eastern European, the previous Soviet particle, we had to go through a huge transition with the accession to the European Union. And actually the process of having access to the European Union kind of created new interest in local practices, local lifestyles, local knowledge. So in a way, the multitude of communities around you and access to different language environments can create also an interest in your own background to a certain extent. And then also attract newcomers, others who would be interested in learning something they didn't know of before.
Maybe I can add one thing to this. You were calling it multi-communities, something like that? Yeah.
Is only part of one community is not realistic, because you have communities because of your family history. You have communities because your job, you are connected with professionals in some way, with, if you like, let's say, art. You have a community of artists. That means that you have many motivations in your life. You are not. I think this is a great opportunity, that you are not always in the same land, cultivating the land and making the same things every day, and only communicating with the people that is around your village. You know, I think this evolution also that is connected with the digitalization allows you to expand your experience, life experience.
Yeah, I think I have two examples that I could refer to. The one thing is, whenever we publish an article that's bilingual, that's in the minority language, but also in German, there's just a much greater audience, and more often than people that I never expected to land on our page reply to some of the articles. And the other thing is, when it comes to arts, for example, as you were saying, I was once doing a theater project where, so I'm also like an author and working in theater sometimes, and we had a text of mine that I was performing with 6 other people, but I was the only one who had the Burgenland Croatian minority background. And in the end, we were reciting a poem of a Burgenland Croatian author who died nearly 100 years ago, and it was so great to see that you could use this old ancient minority language to I don't know, to present an anti-war poem in a very, very new way. So I think people are very open, especially through arts, maybe through media as well. And I think what we like, the ignorance towards languages has to a certain degree disappeared, at least in open-minded people. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Alejandro's question is very important because membership in multiple communities automatically also means having multiple identities. And research has moved from talking about identity to identities. And identities are then also connected to language, because language is part of our identity. So I think the membership in multiple communities is the chance for sustainable multilingualism. Because if we are members in several communities, we can use the languages and the cultures and the art that are associated with these different communities and use the languages. And if we achieve sustainable multilingualism, the minoritized languages will be less endangered. And one other thing I find very interesting about Rise Up is that we have languages included which are already under EU language policy and languages which are spoken in countries which are not yet under EU language policy. And I think that could also become quite interesting in Rise Up.
Would you like to add something?
Just a last point to take this up, this idea of multiple identifications. We are not only speakers of German, we are also using English for academic purposes. He's not only a speaker of Burgenland Croatian. And so yes, of course, this is important, but this is something that has to be learned. And we all, in our research, we have seen people who sacrificed one language for another one that brings much more possibilities. And now we have to learn you need not sacrifice one. And this is what we mean by sustainable multilingualism. There can be a common language, but there need not be only one language for the community. And this is what is important. And it's not so easy to learn it, yeah?
Yes, important closing remark, yes. Any other questions? I don't mean to put the representatives of Yen on the spot, but I might. I'm curious about how it works on the ground. That would be a great thing if you could elaborate.
Yeah, this is also my question, and I wonder if also Konstantin can help me out a bit here, because we had a discussion yesterday about, this is a slightly different point, but a discussion about translation, and through Minds and Sparks, and wondering about when we do start to produce media, for example, social media posts, how will we produce these? Will they just be written in English? And what effect would that have? We're targeting 5 different minority communities with 5 different languages. How will the translation in that sense work? And I guess my question is to Konstantin. Sorry to also single you out here. But in what way can this be fair on everybody? And in which way do you think it is most accessible using the internet as a very, very important tool for youth to reach the youth?
So I don't know who is going to be the Rise Up social media manager, but it's an interesting question, because and it also depends on...
Yeah.
Okay. Because you definitely need to decide on a language in terms of, like, if you work with graphics, for example, or I know, or I follow some members of the European Parliament who have one account that is in French and the other one is in English. I don't know if Rise Up will have at least 6 accounts then. So yeah, that's a good question, and I don't know. Bilingual, it kind of works out. With 3 languages, okay, you can still put it into one posting, but yeah, the more languages you have, especially when you don't have like a website that interacts and where you can just switch the languages, and you cannot do that in Facebook, you cannot do that in Twitter. Yeah, I guess you will be working in English and then maybe single out some languages. Yeah.
But what I would like to add to it, that something that we need to reflect on is also orality and literacy related to endangered languages. For example, for the Seto, speaking Seto is one thing, but reading it is quite another matter, to say nothing of writing it, because it has not been a written language, and that there are so many variants of it from village to village, how people speak. And this means that actually the orality of communication needs to come in, and this is definitely a challenge for Yash, just to bring it in a really, really inclusive way, so that the oral communication is there, and oral performance. And this was something that Alejandro has pointed out several times as well. So maybe this would be one of the answers also, how to work with Yen, is have the oral component of the social media interaction. But of course, it shouldn't be just one way. It has to be interactive, something that where people can be engaged.
Mm. I don't know if any in the audience know it, but I was just thinking of Clubhouse. I don't know if any one of you has been part of it. It's been an app, I think 2021, like a year ago or something like that.
Yeah, 2020, 2021, during COVID.
Yeah, during COVID, during the lockdowns, and it was an application that was, you could enter, and it was like a non-stop podcast or non-stop panel discussion. So people would enter a room and people would be speaking on, I don't know, how to do newsletter marketing, and the language was English. But why not establish, I don't know, a Wirtshaus talk in Cornish or in Seto? Like maybe opening up like a audio channel where you can just participate with your language, if it's that complicated to write it, yeah, and read it. Yeah. So there has been like technological ways to go around the literacy. I don't know, but I think the Clubhouse users do know how to read, but they were using just the voice. Yeah.
I mean, in the experiences of other minority languages that I've worked, well, not necessarily worked on, but experience of, people often write them for the first time in order to take part in social media, to text, and we, as part of our studies, perhaps should look at those practices and how they are engaging with how people are learning to write those languages and their practices, because I think often orthographies are developed top-down, but actually we could use a bottom-up crowdsource method. Yeah.
Alejandro, did you have a response to that before?
But Jennifer wanted to continue.
Also, my apologies. I'll briefly take Alejandro and then revert back to you.
Just to say, because was talking about publishing in several languages at the same time, but I think it's also something that you could be used to, because in Catalonia, when also we do in our institution, you go to a show and you have the writing in Catalan, in Spanish, and English. And for the people, this is normal. They see 3 languages. Why not to have 4 or 5? Because in this way, you are let's say making an inclusion. Nobody is out. You are communicating, and the people could read in the language they feel more comfortable, or they are happy to see what they say, the curator or something like that. That means that this normalization to having at the same time the same message in several languages is something that in Catalonia is now it's very normal. You don't question that as something that is happening.
Maybe I can just say something on that, because up till 3, I think it's okay. But if you go and put 6, 7 languages or 8 languages out there in such a context, then the ninth language person would say, okay, why is my language not there? So we have to see as well, like, where does the distinction happens, that it's reasonable, but not something that creates more diversity than there is, or more feeling of being left out. Yeah.
Yes, please.
If I can add one more thing that I've been thinking about, which is that the work packet of, Yash, what you're doing, one of the final parts of this project will be a digital solution. And we had quite a funny moment yesterday in the first kickoff meeting where Yash asked, what is a non-digital solution? And what does that look like? And I guess that is where the yen is very important, and a very important part of this, because we will actually be going to those places, and as we've said, we already have connections to the Vlach communities in North Macedonia, where my two colleagues are at the moment, and also to Hack and Burgenland Croats. And I think it's important to say that although this digital solution is something very important that has its own work packet, what doesn't have its own work packet is non-digital solutions such as workshops, and actually being there and seeing what these communities need. And something that will be forgotten through these digital solutions is that there are minority communities who do not have access to digital tools at all, and when will they be included? And my previous work is working with theatre and creative writing in communities in Eastern Europe, and creating workshops there for young people who speak a number of languages, but they are all included because of the basis of it being in the arts. And yeah, just to kind of point out the fact that this is also a very important part, and that we need to be going to these specific communities. And as we said yesterday a lot, desk research is one very important part, but actually really being there is also very important. That's not a question, it's just a statement, so yeah.
If you allow me to rephrase that as a question.
Yes.
If you engage with the communities, in German we would say in the flesh, but I've been told off not to say that in English because it has a more biblical meaning.
but yes, to answer the question, we are definitely planning to have workshops and communicate in person.
Yeah. How do you weigh the contact hours that you will have in person regarding methodologies like going into the actual communities compared to, for instance, doing digital ethnographic research on the websites and the tools that are used? Are there strategies in place already for this, or will they organically unfold as you go along and make contact?
Well, actually, what you are asking is bringing in another language, mathematics, and digits. So counting hours. I'm not really able to do that right now, but ethnographic study is definitely very, very important part for many of the work packages, and this means face-to-face contact with people, discussing it with them.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, how are you planning on, like, if someone wants to reach out to rise up into the project, who is then answering? Is it then Minds and Sparks, or is it, yeah?
I guess I'll have to pass it on to you.
Well, the official website, we have the office contact email. This will be read by Minds and Sparks, and then it will be forwarded to the partner in hand. So we are the main sort of communication person, and then this will be discussed with the consortium. If we need to make some decisions, or if we identify opportunities, events, etc., etc. That and the more public channel are the social media channels. So.
Because I can think that maybe some organizations are interested in, I don't know, inviting you over and presenting like the project in, I don't know, somewhere in south of Burgenland or wherever one comes up with it.
Well, if that's an invitation, we already have the contact, so we don't have to go for the project website. So we can go direct is always the best and most efficient way. This was more for, let's say, cold contacting. Yeah.
Who don't know you yet, yeah. But
Yeah. For cold contacting, so-called, website. But if we are already, this is the purpose: workshops, events, awareness raising. We talk, we exchange contacts, and that's how it starts. The more direct it is, the more efficient it will get.
Yes. The reason why I raised that point was also precisely that, because if we are in the communities through Yen with the people and create workshops that involve the arts and visual and audio, and you have multimodal input, that stays with people much longer. And that's what, it doesn't only create awareness, but it creates a lasting learning effect. And it's memorable. Yeah. All right, do we have any further inputs? No, our online audience, they have no questions? Must mean we were very clear in the presentation. All right, I think that leads to a natural conclusion. Thank you very much for the input you gave and for the questions you asked. And I guess you can join me on stage for closing remarks.
Yeah, well, thank you all for the participation, to our work package leaders, to Konstantin for his great opinions. And this is the perfect example of how we intend to do these workshops. It's about asking questions, about identifying challenges, pitfalls, obstacles, opportunities, and then how we can tackle them through two perspectives. So during the discussions, so you might have already identified, there's a technical component to this project, to this let's say, challenge, and then the social, the human aspect. And we need to incorporate both of them. It needs to be in a synergy. So from my side, I wish to thank everybody once again, to the audiences via the YouTube stream. We can wrap up this event, and then we are not done. So after our lunch break, we will have a second session of, let's say, these more managerial aspects, where we will present how we will proceed with the work of so to ensure the most optimum use of resources, how to ensure proper let's say, execution of tasks and deliverables. But also more importantly, we will conclude our session for today internally for our consortium partners with several workshops and brainstorming sessions. So we are now at the stage of asking questions, identifying problems. We don't have answers, we just have a path, a goal, and now we are asking questions, how do we get there? So this is the most critical part of the project, that we identify the path and make some decisions, and to really start showing results and showing it to the audiences and disseminate it through, let's say, social, scientific publications and events, etc., etc. So from my side, once again, thank you very much. Jacqueline, thank you for the great moderation. And I hope you have a nice day. And if you're flying home, have a safe trip as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So this is just for the...